So I think that is something that for males versus females, when it comes to training, there really aren't that many differences, especially if we're just talking about like, okay, if my goal is to, put on muscle or get toned or just look good. If I want to change my body composition, right, to a point where it's maybe losing a little bit of body fat and, putting on a little bit of muscle, which will create that toned look, right? Toned is a word that is used to describe someone who is lean but has a good amount of muscle mass, right? And so if we don't have that muscle mass underneath the body fat and we try to just lose the body fat without paying attention to the muscle, then you're not going to look toned. You're just going to look skinny, or just not going to look how you want to look, specifically for a woman. So in terms of like males versus females and the differences, really when it comes to programming and training specifically for the goal of putting muscle on to either look more jacked from a dude standpoint or look more toned from a female standpoint, those differences really come down to the specific body parts that you're looking to actually enhance a little bit. So typically for females, we want to have nice butts and nice arms and shoulders. And then males are more typically, and this is super generalized, right? So, and maybe like quads, maybe at least for some females that I tend to work with, they care more about their backside than their front side. But that's not always the case. I like my quads. So yeah, it's really just from that standpoint. Okay, if we want to build up our shoulders a little bit more, we want to build up our glutes a little bit more. Okay, we're just gonna add a little bit more of that into our program, and maybe we take out a little bit of chest and we kind of program that way, and then that's vice versa for males. So that's kind of the biggest thing in terms of the differences. There are some other kind of nuances and things like that between males and females in terms of hormones and things like that, but from what I've seen over my years of coaching, I've tried to implement different things for actually changing programs for females versus males. I work with mainly females, but I've worked with males in the past as well. And like research that I've done in terms of, you should be training this way because, you're at this point in your cycle. Typically there's research there's some things there that could be accurate, but when we're trying to implement that from a practical standpoint with individual clients, everybody is so different. And I've seen, and this just comes from kind of being in the trenches and working with a bunch of different women. Some women, I can say, like, there's some women who respond like with what the research will say, and then there's some women who respond completely opposite, right? And so that all comes back to realizing that everybody's their own individual. And so what I found is that there are some alterations that you can make depending on the person, and maybe you pull back a little bit during the time that you're not feeling your best, right? Just kind of you're auto-regulating your training to that degree. And I think that's the best you can do and the best you should be doing and paying attention to, and not getting so caught up on all like the tiny nuances and trying to structure your training around that, because you can do that. And that's what we talk about this a lot in my Muscle Science for Women program, which we were talking about a little bit off air. In that program, it's literally Muscle Science for Women. We go into training and specifics within building muscle and getting toned for women specifically. And we talk a lot about these things. And there are different nuances. There are different things that you can absolutely pay attention to, but it's finding what you should be paying attention to for you, not for somebody else. Because everybody is so different. So yeah, I would say that, the biggest thing is just what body parts you're looking to, enhance is the main differences. And then from an individual standpoint, looking at those factors as well.